It's time to start that art project that you've always wanted but keep putting off. Trust me, I know it's hard, it's difficult, and we feel like we're not quite there yet in terms of technical skill, or we just have to plan things a little bit more, or whatever it is, but trust me when I say that there is no better place to start than right now. There is no time better to start than right now. In 2021, I got a job offer to move across the country to Brisbane and start a new job doing art stuff. It'd be like a little bit of art direction, a little bit of social media managing, and it was a very exciting prospect at the time, but I started to have mixed feelings about it. And from that whole experience, I used my original characters, Aris and Wyatt, to kind of write this story about Aris moving across her country and all of the different themes I could explore with a decision like that. Essentially, moving away from your friends and family, being in a new environment that's a little bit strange, that's a little bit, scary perhaps. And since then, I wrote an outline of how I wanted these characters to be, of what I wanted them to go through, of the kind of illustrations that I would accompany with text as well. And I wanted to try writing. And then 2 years passed and I just never did anything with it. But recently, I've started to explore that place again and that project. I think when you start to have a lot of ideas for various projects, it can get very stifling because there's so much to commit to, and one project is already enough, and what ends up happening is that you don't do anything. I think for myself, the reason that I put it off for such a long time is because I felt that I had to achieve a certain thing or be at a certain level in order to start, right? So I am very comfortable with painting environments, and it's something that I like to do quite often, but I've always felt that my characters were lacking in terms of technical skill. So the portraits of the characters, the anatomy especially, and posing is something that I have a bit of trouble with sometimes. And so I just put it off and thought, okay, well, I'm gonna do all of these portrait studies, do all of these, life drawings and everything, and then and only then I will go back and give this project justice. Right? So that's how I felt about it. But I'm realizing now, a few years later, and now that I've actually started, while I did do the practice and I did put more time into learning anatomy, I realized that I probably could have done both simultaneously. And it's not one or the other. I tend to be very future focused, and because of that, I do get a lot of anxiety about how things could be and how things could turn out, that I don't actually look at what is and what's in front of me. And especially because I'm not really looking into the present moment. And so when I realized that, okay, there is no time better to start than right now, I learned by doing it, I learned by putting in the reps with my own project, things started to click a lot more, ironically. And this year, I have a lot more of an emphasis, a lot more of a drive, a lot more of a motivation to work on these projects. I do also want to give some context for the painting that you're seeing on screen. And this is me finally introducing Aris and Wyatt to everybody. So I kind of picture them out in the desert and someone's taking a picture of them, and Aris is there looking all cool and Wyatt is trying to be the same. And I want to create this dynamic between them. And so when I eventually started painting it, things started to click into place. I've got all these ideas of the town that Aris and Wyatt live in and the place that they eventually move to, which is going to be a much bigger cyberpunk city. And it'll push me to create, new things that I am not looking at from reference. It's something that I'm actually trying to build towards, which is going to be very exciting. But I just want to say, for you, whatever project it is that you have in mind, whether it's starting a YouTube channel or streaming more, or whether it's finally doing that portfolio you've always wanted, or working on the animation, you can do it. Just start now and stop thinking about it too much. Of course, you have to plan these things and you have to figure out, how much time it's going to take if you have to balance other things in your life. But at the end of the day, just start now. Literally today, I'm not even kidding, after this video or whatever it is you have planned, do something. Do something to push the needle forward. Whether it's thinking about a logo design, whether it's actually writing down a few ideas of where you want to be or what you want to do. If you've always wanted to table at conventions, for example, start looking into it. Start looking at, conventions near you. Start looking at how to format prints or what kind of art or merch you want to start. If you've always wanted to do that online shop, just do it. Because the longer that you put it off, ironically, of course, it's not going to happen. So the only way that we can do it is by doing little tiny baby steps that push us towards that goal. And it's always going to be difficult when you start initially because it's a new skill, it's a new learning curve. There's a lot of things that go into it, but you just have to start and you just have to at least try. It's not going to be good. That's just the truth of it. But the more that you do it, the better you will be. When you have your own personal project, when you have an idea of the things that you want to do, you should do it. And all of those blocks that you put in yourself to stop yourself from achieving something, or because you're not at a certain level yet, or it's really inaccessible, those are all tricks. Those are all insecurities that pop up, and we don't need to listen to them. If you think about not having consequences, so for example, what happens if I do this thing and I fail? If you just push that out of your mind and just start and realize that the anticipation of things is often worse than the thing itself. So let's say you do start something and it turns out terrible. It's not actually as bad in reality as it is in your head. There's a quote by Anthony Trollope that I often think about, and it goes, "A small daily task, if it be really daily, will beat the labors of a spasmodic Hercules." And I find this so true because oftentimes we think about a large project or something like that, and it becomes so overwhelming because there's so many moving parts and pieces, and we overestimate how much we can do in a day, but underestimate how much we can actually achieve in a year. So what I'm saying is that when you start to work on your projects, when you start to chip away at these things, they don't have to be giant efforts, but as long as you're consistent, as long as you're pushing the needle forward every single day, you will get to where you want to go. It's not rocket science, it's not something mystical or crazy, it's just effort. And it's just being consistent and being true to yourself. And I think that that's a very beautiful thing. When I left uni as well, and when I graduated, I just remember for like a year after that, being in this existential mode and wondering like, what the hell am I gonna do now? I've spent all this time and money on this course, and now I don't really see the fruits of my labor. I'm not sure where it's gonna lead in life. I'm not sure if I'm gonna get that job I've always wanted, or the idea of surviving as an artist. And at a certain point, I just remember wanting to play video games all day, watch TV shows, because the idea of doing art gave me anxiety, and I felt kind of paralyzed, like I wasn't able to start or do anything because now it was up to me where my life went, and that was just too much pressure. But I think that's a common feeling too for a lot of graduates when they finish this thing, and we all have our own expectations of how life will go and how life should go, that when it doesn't work out, we feel bad. But again, we can't predict the future. We can work towards things, but we can't actually control the outcome, whether or not we do get that job or have the opportunity in the first place. Whatever it is, really, we can only do so much. Much easier said than done, I know. Last year, I also read this book called The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho, and there's a quote in it that I also think about from time to time. It's basically the story, I'm not going to spoil anything, but the main character is a boy named Santiago, and the whole story is about him finding his personal treasure and moving from Spain to the pyramids of Egypt. And there's a passage where he's talking to a few people at like a market or something like that, and he's trying to convince somebody to take him to the pyramids of Egypt because he's really unfamiliar with the land. And he's saying like, okay, once I find my personal treasure, I'm going to give you all this gold and all this kind of stuff. And there's a quote in it that goes, "If you start by promising what you don't even have yet, you'll lose your desire to work towards getting it." And that one really grounded me because, of course, you know, like I mentioned, I'm very future focused, but it's also realizing what's in front of you. And it stuck with me because I realized like, yeah, it's true. Everything that I have is in front of me, but I shouldn't be making promises of things that I don't have already, or that haven't happened or haven't occurred. I'm really curious to hear what kind of things you guys would like to start doing. Just leave it in the comments down below and I'll reply to them I'm just curious about, now it's a new year and everything like that. What is it that you'd like to achieve as an artist? What is the kind of art that you'd like to create? Do you want to work and be more technical and get that job and, create that portfolio? Or do you want to explore more of your style and your voice like I'm trying to do? Because I feel that, honestly speaking, it's not enough for art to just be impressive, but there needs to be something else there, something that makes people feel, some kind of communication that makes people think. And back in 2021, I finished this lo-fi series I had called Within Our Thoughts. I do have another video talking about it on the channel, but each of those illustrations was deeply symbolic to me. And I feel that technically I have improved more as an artist since then, and I kind of want to circle back to that. I'm being a little bit more selective with the kind of client work that I get now, and I'm trying to just sort of cultivate my own voice and think about these characters that I've created and the world that I have, and trying to create that feeling of relaxation and lo-fi and reflection and deliberation. I feel like I'm a pretty chill person normally, and I realize that I can try and reflect that into my art. And that's something that I really want to be focusing on. So I know that whatever it is that you have in your mind, whatever project that you have that may seem inaccessible or whatever, again, for the 1,000th time, just start. Just do it. You can do it. Stop making excuses. I know you can do it. Just do it. And I'm also curious, I used to make these kinds of videos a few years ago, earlier on my channel, where it's just kind of these art mindset talks with a time lapse. And I'm curious if you guys are into this kind of content and whether or not I should keep making it, because I know that the art analysis stuff is sort of the bread and butter on this channel, and they tend to do really well, but they take a very, very long time. And I don't want to usually go a couple of months between uploads. This year I'd like to be a little bit more consistent. So if you are interested, or if you have any other topic ideas or anything to make this kind of format interesting, please let me know down in the comments below. So with that being said, everyone, thank you so much for listening. I know you can do it. Again, I believe in you. And until next time, take care and stay safe.